The Mountain was a political group during the French Revolution whose members, called Montagnards, sat on the highest benches in the Assembly. They were the most radical group and opposed the Girondists. The term, which was first used during a session of the Legislative Assembly, came into general use in 1793. Led by Maximilien Robespierre, the Montagnards unleashed the Reign of Terror in 1794. History. Origins. It is difficult to pinpoint the conception of the Montagnard group, because the lines which defined it were themselves quite nebulous early on. Originally, members of the Mountain were the men who sat in the highest rows of the Jacobin clubs, loosely organized political debate clubs open to the public. Though members of the Montagnards were known for their commitment to radical political resolutions prior to 1793, the contours of political groups presented an ever-evolving reality that shifted in response to events. Would-be prominent Montagnard leaders like Jean-Baptiste Robert Lindet and André-Jean Bon Saint-André were tempted by early Girondin proposals. And soon, many moderates, even anti-radicals, felt the need to push for radical endeavors in light of threats both within and without the country. It was only after the trial of Louis XVI in December of 1792, which united the Montagnards on a position of regicide, that the ideals and power of the group fully consolidated. Rise and terror. The rise of Montagnards corresponds to the fall of the Girondins. The Girondin party hesitated on the correct course of action to take with Louis XVI after his attempt to flee France on 20 June 1791. Some elements of the Girondin party believed they could use the king as figurehead. Riding on this victory, the Montagnards then sought to discredit the Girondins. They used tactics previously employed by the Girondins to denounce them as liars and enemies of the revolution. They also formed a legislative committee in which Nicolas Hens proposed a limitation of inheritances, gaining more support for the Montagnards. Girondin members were subsequently banned from the Jacobin Club and excluded from the National Convention on 31 May. 2 June 1793. Any attempted resistance was crushed. Maximilien Robespierre then continued to consolidate his power over the Montagnards with the use of the Committee of Public Safety. Decline and fall. The fall and exclusion of the Montagnards from the National Convention began with the collapse of the Revolution's radical phase and the death of Robespierre on 10 Thermidor 1794. While the Montagnards celebrated unity, there was growing heterogeneity within the group as Robespierre and his Committee of Public Safety overextended themselves with their tight control over the military and their extreme opposition to corruption in the government. Their overextension drew the ire of other revolutionary leaders, and a number of plots coalesced on 9 Thermidor when collaborators with the more moderate group, the Dantonists, acted in response to fears that Robespierre planned to execute them. However, as Robespierre was widely considered the heart of the Montagnards, his death symbolized the collapse of the party. Few desired to take on the name of Montagnards afterwards, leaving around only about 100 men. Finally, at the end of 1794, the Mountain largely devolved into a party called the Crest, which lacked any real power, factions and prominent members. The Mountain was born in 1792, with the merger of two prominent left-wing clubs, the Jacobins and Cordeliers. Initially the Jacobins were moderate Republicans and the Cordeliers were radical populist, but in late 1792, Danton and his supporters wanted a reconciliation with the Girondists, which caused a break with Robespierre. After the trial of Girondists in 1793, Danton became strongly moderate while Robespierre continued his authoritarian policies. The moderates of Danton were also rival to the Jacobins, exaguerres, that wanted the hardly persecution of the all non-Montagnards and the dechristianization of the France. When Robespierre eliminated first the Hébertists and then the Dantonists, his group ruled the mountain until the Thermidorian reaction, when several conspirators supported by the Plain did a coup d'état, executed the Robespierre's supporters including himself and split from the mountain to formed the Thermidorian left. The Montagnards that survived were arrested, executed or deported. From 1794 to 1795, the mountain was effectively obliterated. Robespierrists: Maximilien Robespierre, Louis-Antoine de Saint-Just, Georges Couthon, Marie-Jeanne Hérault de Seychelles, Pierre-François Joseph Robert, Paul Barras, Joseph Fouché, Augustin Robespierre, Jacques-Louis David, Bertrand Barrère, Pierre de Los de la Cloze, Jacques-Nicolas Billard Varennes, Jean-Lambert Tallien, Louis Michel Lepelletier, François Henriot, Jean-Baptiste de Lavalette, Jean-Baptiste Fleuriot Lescot, Antoine Simon, Hébertists, Jacques Hébert, Pierre-Gaspard Chaumette, Jean-Paul Marat, Jean-Baptiste Joseph Goebbels, Inarcasis Cloutz, François Chabot, Jean-Baptiste Noël Bouchotte, Stanislas Marie Maillard, François-Nicolas Vincent, Antoine-François Montmoreau, Charles-Philippe Ronson, Joseph Le Bon, Jean-Baptiste Carrier, Indulgence, Georges Danton, Camille Desmoulins, Fabre d'Eglantine, Julien of Toulouse, Louis-Marie Stanislas Frerin, Pierre Philippot, François-Joseph Westermann, Isaac-René Guy Le Chapelier. Electoral results. Bibliography. François Furet and Mona Rozov, A Critical Dictionary of the French Revolution. Jeremy D. Popkin, A Short History of the French Revolution, 5th ed. Marissa Linton, Choosing Terror, Virtue, Friendship, and Authenticity in the French Revolution. Maurice Slavin, The Making of an Insurrection, Parisian Sections and the Gironde. Peter Kropotkin, Trans. N.F. Dryhurst, The Great French Revolution, 1789 to 1793. Peter McPhee, Robespierre, A Revolutionary Life. Robert J. Alderson, This Bright Era of Happy Revolutions. French Consul Michel-Ange Bernard Mangretin, International Republicanism in Charleston, 1792 to 1794. The editors of Collins English Dictionary. Mountain, Collins English Dictionary Online. The editors of Encyclopædia Britannica. Montagnard, Encyclopædia Britannica Online.